and welcome to Horror Rewind. This is Kelly Florence, and this week we're talking about Dracula. Coming up in our book, The Science of Monsters, we have 3 chapters dedicated to vampires, and one of the chapters, of course, is all about the science behind Dracula. Now, Bram Stoker wrote the novel in 1897, and it was adapted for the stage in 1924. Bela Lugosi starred in the stage play, and that's how he ended up getting the role in the film in 1931. It was directed by Todd Browning, and it was a little bit different, the theatrical version, when it was first released than when it went into wide circulation. A couple of scenes had to be censored. The first was an epilogue to the audience that was cut out of fear of encouraging a belief in the supernatural for the audience. Can you imagine? And then the other parts that were edited were Dracula's death groans and Renfield's screams. They were actually muted in the soundtrack for the film. They got censored, and they were later restored. Now, there have been hundreds of adaptations of Dracula for stage, screen, TV, comic books, you name it. And there's one happening in my own backyard. Stephen Dietz's 1996 play, Dracula, will be performing at the Underground Theater October 3rd through the 19th. It's Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights at 7:30, and tickets are $20. I had the opportunity to attend a rehearsal and talk to the director and 2 of the actors. Take a listen.
I found them dashing. I spoke to her of my fondness of Bach, but she bested me with her treatise on Mozart.
Miss Lucy has been upstairs all day.
She's a clever girl, John. She called herself mean and claimed to be lost, but we're all lost in here, aren't we? I do hope she found her way.
You're speaking of Miss Mina, then?
Name him what you will. Any bride will do, eh, Johnny?
I will not tolerate this driver.
So I am here with, I'm going to actually have the people introduce themselves, with cast and crew of Dracula. So first we start off with the director.
Hi, my name is Justin Peck. I'm directing Dracula.
My name is Haley Methner. I'm playing Lucy Westenra.
My name is Shayna Shafter, and I'm playing Mina Marie.
Awesome. So the first thing I want to ask all of you is, how did you get into theater? Like, each of you individually, what is your past experience and what drew you to the theater?
I've been doing theater stuff since childhood. Started writing plays in 1st and 2nd grade. Did theater stuff in high school and college. Some improv stuff in the Twin Cities. I ran a theater in Wisconsin for about a decade. I should say I helped to run a theater, so more than me involved. And then I've been involved here in Duluth for about 3.5, 4 years, something like that.
Very nice.
For me, when I was little, my mom would take me out to see shows, and I had a lot of energy, so they're like, well, where else should we put her in besides plays? So I started doing that, loved it, grew up loving it, and now I'm studying theater at UMD currently.
Okay. So actually, I remember they used to have my sister's high school come and perform shows for us when we were little. So they came over from the high school and performed a show, and I remember watching her on stage and being like, whoa, she's a totally different person, and that's so cool. So I got super into it and wanted to try it too. My mom got me into competitive speeches first, so that wasn't as fun, but it was still cool. It kind of gave me some skills and made me a little less nervous. I was pretty shy, so being in front of people was hard, but I started to try it when I got into middle school and did it all through high school and college, and just started kind of getting more involved in Duluth theater. So
Awesome. Now, this play, Dracula, it's an adaptation by Stephen Dietz, and I was wondering if you have always wanted to direct this, Justin, or did it sort of come to you, and what drew you to this script and this adaptation?
Yeah, Stephen Dietz, he's a really fantastic playwright. I'm a big fan of his plays generally, fiction and God's Country. And he also has a connection here in Minnesota. He helped to run the Playwrights Center in the Twin Cities for about a decade. So yeah, I love this adaptation. I didn't select it. It was selected by the artistic director of the Underground, and then we discussed me being involved. But yeah, I was pretty excited for the opportunity. It's a nice cut. He's made some adjustments, I think, that really help to sort of streamline, because the novel is letters and newspaper clippings and ship manifests and that sort of thing. And so adapting that for stage is a bit of a challenge. I think he's done a really fantastic job.
I'm looking forward to seeing this adaptation. I saw an adaptation a couple years ago in Louisville, and it was a little different. And so I've heard good things about this. I'm wondering what your first experience was with Dracula. Do you remember seeing a version of Dracula or him portrayed, or did you read the book or anything from the past or currently?
Oh gosh, I don't know what my first memory of Dracula is. There's definitely like your typical like Hotel Transylvania kind of Dracula stuff. But I actually did read Dracula in college. I took an architecture of horror class, and it was one of our assigned readings. And yeah, that's kind of when I got more into it. It was a really cool book. So.
Yeah, for me, I never read Dracula, and all I knew is that it was like this old story of this vampire. So for me, it was Twilight that got me into the vampires, and I'm like, ooh, this is fun, this is sexy, you know, I'm in middle school, this is fun. But yeah, I previously didn't have much involvement in anything Dracula, so this is really cool to like get to know, especially this Bram Stoker version and what Stephen Dietz does with it, and it's just so fun. I love it a lot.
I'm a movie guy, so my first, I would probably have been Bela Lugosi's Dracula, and then I saw Nosferatu, the German Expressionist version, and then Coppola's, I guess, would have probably come out when I was maybe in college. I can't remember the timing of it exactly, but a lot of kind of movie vampire, a lot of movie Dracula stuff would probably have been first for me.
I was going to ask if any of you are vampire fans. We all had a Twilight phase, right? I mean, I think it's inevitable. And now they've sort of, I mean, I don't know if there's anything really current vampire-ish. Is there, like, right now, current? Maybe not, but this is...
What We Do in the Shadows. Yeah. What We Do in the Shadows, maybe? Yeah.
That's true. And I love that show. That's so great. Let me see. What do you think has surprised you the most from this process of directing or acting in this show so far? I know you haven't opened yet, but has anything surprised you?
For me, it's the portrayal of the female characters. I think it's really interesting because you often see in these like scary movies or scary plays that the females are always the victims. And yes, in this version, there's some bit of like they're the ones being pursued, but also they have a lot of power. Like Lucy herself has a ton of spunk, a ton of life to her, very powerful. And Mina too is just extremely intelligent, and you never really look at them as much as like victims or more like people fighting for their life, which is very interesting to see in a play like this.
I guess for me, it's always kind of a joy to see what the cast brings to it, because, you know, I've spent months with the script ahead of time and planning and sort of thinking how things will go. And then, you know, the actors come in and they bring their own, you know, interpretations and versions of how things mean, and I guess, you know, intention and all that sort of stuff. And it always just comes to life in a really surprising and different way. I love that part of it. It comes to life in a way that you can never sort of picture ahead of time. So that's always nice. It's not really Dracula specific, but it's kind of director specific, yeah.
So when I first read the script before auditioning, I remember reading the back little excerpt by Stephen Dietz, and I was surprised at his interpretation of the horror of it. So it was really interesting. It's a lot about like secrets and keeping secrets, and I think what I found a lot from playing Mina was that even though she's keeping her own secrets, there's a lot of secrets being kept from her. And I think what's scary the most for her is that there's like this kind of jigsaw puzzle she can't quite put together. Because I think while it is scary when she finds out kind of what's happening and what's going on, I think it's more scary for her not knowing, having pieces of it, but not having those pieces filled in. So I think that's a really interesting interpretation of the fear, you know, because I guess you wouldn't normally think of something like that scary. Like, I mean, yeah, you're scared of what you don't know, but I don't know. It's kind of an interesting twist on that, I suppose.
Now, speaking of fear, are there, I don't know if you want to give this away, are there any sort of jump scares in this play, and what is the age appropriateness for audience members?
I guess it's probably PG-13-ish, I would say, yeah. Not a ton of jump scares, I guess maybe 2 or 3, I guess, yeah. But there are definitely scary moments in it, where young kids might feel a little too scared, but yeah, I think it'd be okay for 13 and up. Yeah.
It's good to know, and people are always, you know, asking and wondering too if kids could come. I'm wondering if any of you have You don't have to give anything away, although we all maybe know the story of Dracula. But do you have a favorite scene or a favorite moment right now that you've come into rehearsal and it's your favorite one to play or to watch? Maybe you're not even in it.
I actually really like, there's, okay, I don't want to give any spoilers, but I'm going to give it away. I really like it when Lucy comes in as the bloofer lady. I love that scene so much. I can't even describe it to you. I'm like the worst because the way I react to scary things is I laugh a lot. So that scene like kind of kills me a little bit. But it's just so epic. Like, it's so good. Her death is like one of the coolest parts of the show, I think.
Yeah, there's a really cool section where there's like 3 or 4 different scenes going on at once. Very like high stakes scenes happening all at once, and you hear all these different like snippets of dialogue that jump out about what's going on, and it's terrifying, and I don't know, it just makes like your heart pound so fast, and then all of a sudden it all stops, and there's like a creepy moment that I won't give away, but it's just suddenly still, and I don't know, Stephen Dietz does such a good job at building that suspense, and then whew, it's out. And you're like, what's going to happen next? And that's definitely my favorite portion.
It's
like having you pick a favorite child, right?
It totally is. Yeah, there's some really great moments. Everybody does such nice work. I will say that both the times, so the time that Dracula feeds on Lucy and the time that he feeds on Mina, I still like tense up. Like my muscles get tense watching it. It just because it's really a powerful, terrifying moment. And both Haley and Shayna do an amazing job there. But I've seen it done dozens of times. Like, we blocked it together. There's nothing surprising there, but it still makes me like, oh god, yeah.
Now, are we going to see Renfield eat any bugs in this version?
He does eat a bug. Yeah, that's true.
I think that's pretty gross. So I will look out for that. That would jump scare me. Now, you were talking about how your characters are powerful, and I'm wondering where you drew inspiration. Did you watch any versions, or did you go to the source material or anything for your character development or backstory, and what you're bringing to your character, or did you pull from yourself?
Yeah, I think I mostly pulled for myself. I didn't do a whole lot of character research. I think the way I interpret it is just trying to play her as much of a real person as possible, but I also feel like I really relate to her a lot. Like, we talk a lot about how Mina's a very, like, modern woman. She's very excited to be working with her, like, fiancé, and I'm definitely, like, proud of, like, being graduated and having a degree and getting to work, and even though it's not always fun, but no. But, like, yeah, I definitely get excited about being independent and feeling independent, and I think she does too. I also think she's just very stable and intelligent, and I think I'm a pretty, while I am very silly and things like that, I think for the most part I'm a pretty even-toned person on the daily, so there's this kind of peacefulness as well to her, so I think, I don't know, I kind of felt like, well, I don't have to do a whole lot of extra stuff, I guess, to play her.
Something I like to do before I get into a character, especially if it's one as well known as Lucy, I like to look up different people's different artist renditions of it. So like the picture of the character and how they would like to show it, how they draw it. Because it's cool to see like how many different people have different ideas of what this character is. And I noticed that she was always very, very strong, kind of put together and playful at the same time. And when she's the bloofer lady, there's still that like immense strength there. And I love that. You never see her. Like, there's moments where she's sick and things like that. But every rendition I've seen of her was always like she was standing straight up tall, very proud of who she is and never backing away. And I really liked that.
Awesome. So is there anybody involved that you want to give a shout out to that we haven't talked about?
Sure, yeah. I mean, we have to thank Robert, I guess. He's the artistic director. Robert Lee is the artistic director of The Underground. His support's always great. We've got a fantastic, the whole cast is great. All of our design team is awesome. We've got great props and scenic and costume designers involved. Lighting, it's a team effort, and everybody's great.
And then my final question If Dracula came to you and said, I can make you eternal, would you become a vampire?
No way. No. I think I'd just like to be done at some point. I don't know.
What if it was Edward Cullen?
Actually, both Dracula and Edward, yes, of course I would. I just try to find, I think, a creative way of finding blood, or being like in the movies, or go out and find the bad guys and then suck their blood instead. I totally would. That'd be so great.
Justin, would you become a vampire?
I think I would have said no, but then I think about being a flatmate with Taika Waititi for What We Do in the Shadows. That might be fun. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure.
It's sort of like this moral dilemma, right? Like, we shouldn't, but it would be fun. Yeah. So who knows? Well, thank you so much for talking with me, and this will air the day that you open. So happy opening.
Oh, thank you. Kelly. Thanks so much.
Mr. Marks, miss, come quickly. Find Professor Van Helsing and send him here immediately. Tell him they are gone. The marks on her neck, they've disappeared. She's healed. Quickly now, go. Lucy.
If you're able to attend Dracula or another theater production of Dracula or another horror play or any play in your area this October, I'd love to hear about it from you. I think it's so important that we support the arts in our local communities and elsewhere. A couple of new shows have premiered in the past week or so. The first one that we watched the first 2 episodes of American Horror Story. By the time this episode airs, there will be 3 episodes out. But it's AHS 1984, and it's set at a summer camp, and it feels very Friday the 13th-ish.
Definitely Friday the 13th-ish, like maybe even a little too similar, like almost verbatim, but still really enjoy it.
So we're curious where the plot is going to go. So far, I mean, the 80s nostalgia thing, I feel like they're trying to work in all these tropes and pop culture things from the 80s and build off of Stranger Things nostalgia and popularity.
Yeah, definitely a Stranger Things vibe, especially with the theme song, kind of similar with the electronic music. I do like the theme song and like all the different shots and like images they show. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's been enjoyable so far. So the camp that they're working at is Camp Redwood, and there's some interesting storylines. We won't go into spoilers, but just sort of our initial thoughts. I'm hoping that it doesn't fizzle out mid-season, but I also can't see. I'm assuming the setting is going to change because I can't imagine that they're going to set 10 episodes at this camp because 2 episodes that's like the normal length of a slasher at a camp.
Yeah, I don't know where they're going with it. I'm enjoying it at the camp. I could see what you're saying though about how it could get kind of old to have it here the whole time. So I don't know. It doesn't show any signs of going anywhere else, but
it kind of has to, right? Because otherwise, I mean, how could he or they, these villains, torture and chase these people around a camp for 10 hours? 10 episodes. I don't know.
I don't know either. We'll have to keep watching, I guess.
I guess so. The other thing that dropped this past week. Oh,
just one other thing. I think they did a good job casting the American Horror Story show. Diverse cast and a lot of good different 80s looks, I thought.
Yeah, it's great. And I love that Matthew Morrison is in this season. And one of my favorite actors from the Gianni Versace movie is also in this season.
Small spoiler. Matthew Morrison plays a guy named John Holmes, who apparently goes on to become a famous porn star.
Yikes.
In real life, I mean.
Yeah. Interesting. So the other show that dropped this past week on Shudder is the new Creepshow. And there's the first episode is available now, and I think they're going to release an episode per week. But there's 2 stories in the episode. And we are going to get into a little more spoilers on this. So if you haven't watched them yet or you don't want to know anything about either episode, then maybe don't listen. But I recommend watching. The first episode was called... What, do you remember?
Gray Matter?
Yes, Gray Matter. And it's a storm coming in, and this kid comes to this little shop and says, he's there to get the beer for his dad, but something strange is happening, and he doesn't want to go back home to his dad because he's different, and we're not sure why.
My favorite thing in making this show is telling you what actors from other shows are in these things. So Gustavo from Breaking Bad is in it.
Yes.
He looks a lot different. I think he's got longer gray hair and maybe a beard. Mm-hmm. And also the guy who plays Jigsaw in the Saw movies is in it. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and then Adrienne Barbeau is the woman. And so that's awesome. And it's just very well made. Like, it looks like a classic comic book. It feels like Tales from the Crypt. It feels like the old Creepshow. It's wonderful.
Yes, very good. I don't know if you want to get into the story or just kind of... Is Harrow's Lager beer, is that a real beer?
I assume it's not.
I think they should make it, and I drink it.
Yikes. Well, I think, this one was, obviously something supernatural is going on, but it's sort of a message about alcoholism and how it can change a person. And this guy, he was starting to look a little strange, moldy, slimy. Pretty soon he was full on like sea creature.
Yeah, it was really weird. They didn't really get into what happened or why. I guess it really doesn't matter. Yeah, his wife died and the kid's mom died, and that's when his dad just started drinking, and they kind of talked about, at first he'd only drink when he was stressed out or on like a Friday, and then it just turned into an every night thing, so it's too bad.
Yes, and then I was saying you really know that something is wrong when he would have his son heat up the beer on the stove when he was drinking warm beer, and they had all the heat cranked and like all the radiators, and just ew.
Yeah, warm beer, I'm not a huge fan, even if it's Harrow's Lager. And then also it reminded, you couldn't do this today, or maybe you could in a small town where the kid that is probably 15, 16 years old goes to the store and buys beer for his dad every day.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing, too. Oh, so that was the first hint that something was strange, as they had all these missing posters for all these dogs that were missing. And then there was on the front page of the paper and on the radio, they talked about these twin girls who were missing. And I noticed it, but I didn't consciously think about it then until the end, when it was revealed that this kid has been bringing his dad dogs to eat, and then those twin girls, oh Lord. And then he sacrificed those guys. I think only one of them died, right? Yikes.
Yeah. I like when and these aren't even that long, but they threw a little thing in at the beginning about these. They just kind of showed some missing dog posters, and they talked about some missing kids or something, and then it came back that the dad had been so hungry that beer, even warm beer, wouldn't do it anymore, and he was just turned into this monster who was consuming animals and people.
So we've been rewatching The Good Place, and in the medium place, which is between heaven and hell, all you can drink is warm beer, because it's like you get beer, but it's warm. So, it's not hell, I guess, to drink warm beer, but it's got to be close.
Sounds like hell to me.
So overall, I really liked the first episode. I think it was solid, but I liked even more the second episode, Head of the House.
I believe that's what it's called, yep.
And it was this dollhouse. This girl had this little dollhouse, and then the dolls start moving on their own, and we don't actually ever see them move. We just see where they've been moved to, and like this severed head appears, and it's so unsettling and creepy and strange. And I kept trying to figure out what's the twist going to be, but it never went where I thought it would, and I like that.
Yeah, I thought the coolest part was that you like the little doll things weren't moving around, like you couldn't see them. That would have been kind of cheesy or whatever, but yeah, like every time she went there, they'd be in a different place, and they could like change their expressions. Like once they were the whole family was like in one room, like looking up a stairway, and then there was like a cop at the top of the stairs, like with a gun pointed, trying to look for that head. But that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, when all the dolls were screaming in terror, that was really creepy. And I loved it. Like, she was trying to help them, and so she got a cop, first of all, and then she wanted to find, like, a rabbi or a priest, and the guy at the store is like, well, Native Americans are very spiritual, so then she put this Native American figure in there, and, everybody kept getting decapitated.
I thought the guy at the doll store might have something to do with it, because he kind of seemed to know what was going on, or that the dollhouse was haunted or something, but that really didn't ever come back into play.
Right. Well, and maybe there could even be, a part 2 now with the new owner and what's happening. When she threw the head away and then was looking for it, she looked under her bed, and it was a full-size head. That was pretty creepy.
Yeah, that was the last straw for that little girl. She knew at that point that she had to get rid of the dollhouse, so she told her parents, and they got rid of it. Now,
it's the ways that I thought it was going to go, which it didn't. I thought maybe she was acting out something that had happened in their past, and like this was her way of like coping with it, like therapy, or that this was something that was actually happening in their present, but we weren't seeing it because we were only seeing it through the dollhouse, or that, she was decapitating people or something. It never went any of those directions. So I'm glad that it surprised me.
Yeah, I guess once I think back on it, it really didn't go in any direction. They just got rid of the dollhouse. I know there was another person at the end they had given the dollhouse to that was looking at it like, yeah, this is a sweet dollhouse. So,
but remember, they opened it and the severed head was in there.
Okay, I didn't remember that.
Yeah, the little Evan or whatever, the little boy, the head was on him now.
Yes, little Evan, the little kid from the family, had the severed head on his shoulders. So I don't know if I would want that after that.
Yeah, it definitely is strange. So I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to more episodes.
And so it's depicting this family of dad, a mom, and one daughter. But it was like everything was so perfect in their family, so we kept comparing it to our family. Like, oh, look at how the little girl just goes to bed right away. And
she's up and ready for school before the parents tell her to be. And they are encouraging her to stop playing with toys and come watch TV. It's like all the opposites of reality.
And they're like, oh, do you want to sleep in our bed tonight? And the little girl's like, no. So,
but, I guess that's fiction for you.
And they did get me to jump. They turned the page. Maybe it was at the very end, but
they did it a couple times, and it made me creep out.
Yeah, I don't know. So they got me there. So good job, whoever made that.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I would recommend it. Again, it's on Shudder. It's a Shudder exclusive, and Greg Nicotero is the showrunner who did The Walking Dead. So it's legit, you guys.
Definitely go see it. Hopefully I don't know how many episodes there's going to be, but I'm going to watch them all. So
yes.
Oh, dang, did I just commit to that?
Yeah. Well, and about American Horror Story, I will give it many more episodes. I'm enjoying it, like I said. I just hope it doesn't go off the rails because I want it to be good.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't watched too much American Horror Story. I watched the first season in its entirety, I think. But then every year it just seems like, maybe I watched the second season too, but every year it seems like it jumps off the rails, or for whatever reason I lose interest. So I'm going to try to stick with this one.
Awesome. Well, you will hear from us again, and if we stick with it, and I'm hoping we do that because it's so great. So until next time, we'll see you in the horror section.
Bye.